Here we are. This is Grand Prix Vancouver Round 6. I'm Gabe Carlton-Barnes with Randy Bueller, and we're going to watch 5-0 Paul Cheon play against Steven Speck.
Cavern of Souls on turn 1 for Steven Speck. I assume is he on Merfolk? I think he's on Amulet Bloom, I thought.
Cavern of Souls is seen in Amulet.
Right. So it's also seen in Merfolk. I see that's where no, I'm pretty sure he's on Amulet. This is the guy that finished second at Grand Prix Omaha that kind of got the Amulet deck back onto people's radar coming into the Pro Tour.
And here he is in Vancouver.
Oh, the Cavern has been set to Merfolk. That's what's going on. That's hilarious. It's actually a really nice misdirection, right?
Yeah, absolutely. However, Paul Cheon there showing him blue cards, so it may actually be relevant with the counter effect. Cheon Serum Envisioning his first turn, trying to set up for his Splinter Twin deck, trying to find those puzzle pieces.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was funny talking to, there we go, Amulet Blooms. Talking to Sam Black and Justin Cohen, Justin finishing second in the Pro Tour. They were disappointed that Steven Speck made such a run in Omaha. Because they're like, no, we didn't want anybody thinking about amulets. Please, ignore the guy behind the curtain finishing second in Omaha. Pre-bannings, in fact.
It ended up working out all right for them.
It did work out quite fine. Things working out pretty well for Paul Cheon, too. 5-0 so far. 5-0.
And so Steven, you can see one land in play, but that's a Simic Growth Chamber because he played a Cavern the first turn and then bounced it. And here he is.
I'm going to guess the Cavern didn't name Merfolk this time.
Probably not. It is probably named a creature type that allows
Azusa to be uncounterable?
Azusa to be uncounterable.
Human. Yeah, he named Human.
It's named Human. And
made 2 extra land drops.
And dropped a couple extra lands. So you can see the Amulet deck exploding out of the gates right away.
Yeah, Paul's on Splinter Twin. Paul's got a relatively normal version of the list. It does have the couple of Grim Lavamancers and the 4 Snapcasters. So really the Tempo Twin version that we've seen a lot of the sort of Bay Area crowd show up with this weekend.
Right. Yes. Tempo Twin, but not the Tarmo Twin.
Not Tarmo Twin.
A different
right.
deck.
This is like the middle Patrick Dick monolith version, philosophically. Not the late and not the early.
Right. So you can see Cheon end step there is sacrificing his Rainforest to get a Steam Vents, takes the damage so he can Lightning Bolt Azusa before his own turn begins. Says, no more of this 3 lands per turn business.
A lot of the damage has been done, though. Just getting 2 extra land drops is often enough to power the Bloom deck into a quick Primeval Titan.
Now, Paul has had a very good draw phase there. He drew the other piece of his puzzle.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, so he now has Splinter Twin and he has a Deceiver Exarch and a Splinter Twin in his hand.
Interesting. Yeah, this matchup is not the most interactive matchup in the history of the world. I mean, yeah, Paul can kill an Azusa, but I mean, this is like a highly interactive version of this matchup.
Yeah. So Paul is chose cast Serum Visions because he needed 1 more land. He did find the land immediately, and then scryed at least 1 card to the top there.
That means he does not have the mana to drop a Pestromite or a Deceiver Exarch this turn.
If he wanted to make that play, he could have, but he didn't know if he was going to have the 4th land or not.
He'd be basically playing to top deck, specifically red mana.
And so now Steven Speck's turn, there is another Azusa.
Still uncounterable?
Not uncounterable.
No, not uncounterable.
The Cavern was bounced.
Got it.
And that Azusa has been
remanded,
but comes right back out. Steven Speck, though, has no more lands to play. He plays the Cavern of Souls in the Azusa, but that's it.
Yeah, I liked Paul's line there, even before we knew that Steven was out of mana. Just being able to remand, being able to sort of buy time, push him back, and that makes the Serum Visions, like rather than play to get lucky and top deck a land, you go Serum Visions with remand. I like that line.
I like that line too, and it has worked out for him. It looks like Steven Speck didn't have any more lands to play, so he
there's only
stopped.
1 red mana for Paul Cheon, so we're not there yet.
He has a Stomping Ground in his hand.
Aha.
That was the land he had before. He's drawn 2 lands since then. So Paul Cheon playing a Desolate Lighthouse. Maybe Steven will think that he's missing that red mana.
And Paul's got Snapcaster so that he can Snapcaster for remand.
If needed.
If necessary. It means it'll slow his combo down another turn, but I mean, you do what you got to do sometimes, right?
However, that Cavern of Souls is naming Giant now, so.
Got it.
It may not be.
Takes a lot of the value off the remand. He could Snapcaster a Lightning Bolt, but then he's slowing his whole combo down by a turn.
And he passes the turn, and instead he decides to play the Mana Denial game. And he's cast an Upkeep Deceiver Exarch. He's going to tap one of Steven Speck's lands, I assume.
Interesting. If he had 1 more mana, he could tap the Cavern. and then remand a Primeval Titan, but
Right.
not able to leave 2 up. Something about it only being turn 4 and all.
Steven Speck could also then bounce the cavern with a come to play tapped land. Instead, Steven Speck plays a Teleria West tapped and passes the turn.
Should do it, right?
This looks like the window for Paul Cheon
Yeah,
to me.
I mean,
is there anything Steven could have?
These decks tend to run 1 Slaughter Pact. Pact of Negation and Slaughter Pact, I think, are the only outs for Steven Speck. Pact of Negation would also do it. Slaughter Pact is the best card. So Paul's worried about 3 or 4 outs. He's just going for it.
Or he's not worried, he goes for it, and there's the
Pact.
Pact of Negation.
Interesting.
So it does put Steven in the interesting position. Now he has to spend this turn paying for his Pact. So it doesn't work out horribly for Paul Cheon. Certainly could have been better if he just won the game, though.
Oh, well, yeah. And if he'd had 1 more mana for the remand, that would have been nice.
Absolutely.
That said, like, you don't want to just say go and let the Bloom deck go off, especially when it's got a cavern so that you can't counter Primeval Titan.
Steven Speck does have a Summer Bloom in his hand, but it doesn't
No
look like
bounce
he has
land.
anything to do
His
with
problem is he has no bounce land.
it. Yeah, no bounce land. Does he have action up?
Lightning Bolt for Paul. So Paul is now digging for another twin, right?
Yeah, after Steven Speck pays for the Pact and plays a Gemstone Mine, passes to Paul. Paul does not have another twin, so he's looking at how he can attack Steven before Steven's deck gets online.
I think he's got a Grim Lavamancer and a Lightning Bolt, and then I think he's got a Snapcaster, a Remand, and I'm not sure what the last blue card is. Does also have the Loot House, as Marshall likes to call it. Okay, he's going main phase Snapcaster so that he can flash back his Serum Visions.
This makes sense. He can dig for another Splinter Twin. He draws another Snapcaster off, and now he is scrying. Looks like he's seeing a Flame Slash and a blue card.
Yep. Bottom.
I have to think that he's going to try to get to Splinter Twin as fast as he can, and neither of those cards is going to help him get there. Unless that blue card is it looked like a creature to me. I don't think that's going to help him. Paul asks Steven how many cards he has in his hand, just 2.
Maybe you would keep a Vendilion Click there, maybe.
Possibly.
If he has a land drop to play it. I'm not sure he has a land to play it, though.
I don't think that he does. Yes. So Paul with 5 cards in hand. A Lightning Bolt, a Grim Lavamancer, a Snapcaster Mage, 2 other blue cards. And he goes 1, I think he went both on bottom there.
Oh, I didn't notice. He had him split like he was thinking top bottom.
Cheon passes the turn.
So leaving up Remand rather
turn.
than bolting Azusa.
Right. Well, Steven's got all those lands in play. I don't think he's worried about the Azusa playing multiple lands anymore.
You can clear a path to get in for 1 with Deceiver Exarch, though.
That's true. Start the clock.
20 turns from now.
And Steven passes the turn, and Paul does fire off the Lightning Bolt, getting rid of Azusa.
Yeah,
so
just no gas for Steven.
Back to Paul's turn, and Paul did keep the Flame Slash on top of his library,
top
which is
bottom,
strong.
yeah.
Yep.
Wow, what does Flame Slash kill?
Well, if the Primeval Titan doesn't have haste, I guess you could kill it after 1 activation, or you could combine it with a Grim Lavamancer activation. Maybe that's what he's thinking. But that's not the play he makes. Oh, you can also use a Snapcaster along with the Flame Slash to kill a Titan.
Sure.
Doesn't seem like the way you want to deal with a Titan, though.
There's Splinter Twin.
And another Serum Visions off a Snapcaster Mage from Cheon, and he does see Splinter Twin and another Serum Visions. Looks like he wants to put that Splinter Twin on top.
Yeah.
He does.
And the question is, where do you put the Serum Visions? Yeah, I like Serum Visions second.
Yep.
If Splinter Twin doesn't win the game, you know what? You're going to want to be digging with Serum Visions, right?
Exactly. So
like this decision doesn't matter unless Splinter Twin fails. So.
Steven Speck draws the Serum Visions himself and plays it.
He just has not had any gas to work with.
He did see a Primeval Titan there on top of his library, but I don't think he's going to get to it in time. Steven Speck passes the turn with a Titan on top and having scryed another card to the bottom. While Cheon draws Splinter Twin, and will he go for it?
Still no 6th land to be able to remand to defend it.
I don't know that he has a remand.
Yeah, so you just go for it.
And that's it. He goes for it. Steven Speck picks up his cards and shows the Primeval Titan on top of his library, says, I got there, but 1 turn too slow.
Yup. Needed a 2nd Pact of Negation or the 1 Slaughter Pact.
Or just to have a Titan sooner.
Yes, definitely.
So Paul Cheon takes a relatively quick game 1. There were a number of turns played, but they were played pretty rapidly.
Let's look at what's going on in this match, though. So Jeff Shepley
is playing a deck called 8 Rack.
He is 4 copies of Shrieking Affliction, 2 copies of the Rack, so it's probably 6 Rack, but what are you going to do? Burning Inquiry, Inquisition of Kozilek. The key card that this deck really revolves around is Waste Not.
Waste Not.
Waste Not.
Now,
absolutely.
Waste Not. This is a very interesting rare from what was it?
Yeah. You made the card. This is the public put this card together.
The public. Yeah. So a card that hasn't seen a lot of use, at least at this level.
Seen it occasionally, and so there's a ton of discard. Liliana's Caress, Smallpox, Wrenchmine, Lightning, and then 4 Damnations to clear things away.
So Waste Not, if you don't know the text on it, it's a 2-mana enchantment for black and 1, and it says whenever an opponent discards a creature card, you get a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Whenever an opponent discards a land card, you can add 2 black mana to your mana pool. And whenever an opponent discards a non-creature, non-land card, you can draw a card. So if you make your opponent discard, you get a bonus with Waste Not.
Whatever they're discarding, it does something for you. You're never quite sure what, but you look at the 8-Rack deck, which was running around. I mean, we saw this deck at the Pro Tour in Valencia about a year ago, and that was without Waste Not. That was just, I'm going to knock all the cards out of your hand and then kill you with the rack.
Yeah.
Like, throw in Waste Not. If that's the deck you like playing, Waste Not seems perfect.
Absolutely. So interesting here, we've got Kyle Gellert on 2 lands and a Tarmogoyf. Jeff Shepley has 3 lands, and we saw his hand last turn. It looks like he has 3 Damnations in his hand. So the discard element, it looks like he may have already fired off this game, but he's left with a lot of removal. It might be hard for Kyle Gellert to fight through. Kyle is playing Jund midrange, so one of the decks that...
Oh, yeah. I think Jund's an interesting call. Let me see if I see what kind of tech he's got here. Terminate, 3 Terminates, 4 Lightning Bolts, so there's your red removal. A couple of Olivias, a couple of Chandras. Love Chandra in the mirror matchup against, or the pseudo mirror against Abzan. That's kind of where you want to be.
Yep.
I do not see any dragons. I thought Thundermaw Hellkite is another direction you can go to definitely win the Lingering Souls fight.
So Jeff Shepley has slaughter pacted a Tarmogoyf and then paid for it on his turn, while Kyle Gellert has cast Tassiger off just 2 lands.
Wow.
3 lands.
Still, Tassiger's pretty good against discard.
It is.
It's like, you're going to knock cards out of my hand, but really, you've just allowed me to play Tassiger.
Cheaper, and I can get more cards back by activating his ability. So
yeah,
Jeff really wants to draw a land here so we can get one of those Damnations to fire off. Instead, he has drawn the Rack, which will play.
Tassiger seems pretty good against the Rack.
See 3 Damnations and something else in Kyle's hand. So Kyle activates Tassiger, hits a Lightning Bolt, which comes back to his hand, and then takes his turn. This is not looking good for the Waste Not deck.
No, and Waste Not is down a game here too. It's like this is game 2 according to our scoreboard.
Yeah. Kyle with a handful of cards, and he will Maelstrom Pulse the Rack.
Interesting
choice, as opposed to apparently he didn't have any
activating
other pressure to put
Tassiger.
on.
Well, he could have activated Tassiger. That's what he could have done instead.
And we see a hand of 2 Lightning Bolts, a Terminate, and a Chandra when Jeff Shepley Inquisitions Kyle.
Oh, jeez. Bolt you.
Untap. Going to be able to
Jeff just could not get to the 4 mana for Damnation.
And here comes the Chandra. And the Chandra is going to do 1 more to Jeff Shepley, putting him at... Oh, no, he's not going to play.
Leave up Tassiger activation, right?
Activate Tassiger, since he can get Lightning Bolts when he does. And there's Damnation. Oof. In response, Tassiger's activated. Jeff drew the land he needed, but a little late, perhaps.
Yeah.
And what do you want to take back?
A lethal Lightning Bolt? No. You can have a Maelstrom Pulse.
Back. Kyle milling 2 more lands in his graveyard, but he has had those 2 Lightning Bolts in there. So Jeff at 3, and Kyle also has a Raging Ravine in play, so if he draws a red mana here, he just wins the game immediately. And Kyle will now thought seize Jeff, and we see, what does that look like? 2 Damnations and a foil full art.
Damnation?
Is it Damnation?
It might be.
Yeah, it looks like it is.
I think it is.
So Jeff drew all his Damnations this game,
but couldn't get to 4 mana.
Couldn't get to his 4th land. And now he draws a land that Kyle is reading as well. Can you see what that is on the deck list?
Rixmati Dungeon Palace.
Rixmati Dungeon Palace.
And if you can tell me what that does before you look it up, I will give you full props.
Cannot.
Olivia Voldaren coming down. Olivia runs into a damnation, of course.
So Rixmati Dungeon Palace produces colorless mana, and for a red, a black, and 1, makes each player discard a card.
Wow.
You can only use that ability as a sorcery, so.
Remember that now.
And a series of Olivias from Kyle getting damnation before they can kill Jeff, but Jeff, he's looking nervous.
He's got a lightning and a slaughter pack. I mean, he's dead to lightning bolt, and red mana for Raging Ravine is a problem. Slaughter pack can deal with the first one.
Right, and so takes away the red mana, so.
It's not entirely dead, but he's nervous.
Now Jeff is going to fire off Lightning here.
Oh, Lightning, sure.
Kyle Gellert with a handful of cards.
I know our Paul Cheon match is getting ready for game 2, but I want to see how this game ends. It doesn't seem like it can last all that much longer anyway, right?
Nope. Kyle activating his Raging Ravine. Jeff Shepley reveals his last card is another Slaughter Pact.
So he's hellbent.
Interesting.
But still alive.
Slaughter Pact in this deck makes a lot of sense. You have to use your mana proactively to discard your hand and put off paying for the creature you're killing until later.
Draws a land, and now he can activate the Rixmati.
Rixmati, so we see Rixmati actually get activated. But Kyle Gellert with a lot of cards in his hand. There goes that Maelstrom Pulse that he picked up earlier with Tassir. Still has 2 cards in hand.
That probably makes red mana.
A Verdant Catacomb.
I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that he has a dual land.
Gestures at his Raging Ravine as he sacrifices the Verdant Catacomb. Yep. Jeff Shapley with his Hellbent, no cards in hand.
He's basically like, show me the red mana. Yes, I have red mana.
Kyle Gellert chooses to pay 2 life.
All right. 8 rack, so 8 rack got to 5-0 with no buys, is what I heard.
Wow.
So, 5-1's not bad.
He probably did not play test against Jund.
No, Jund's not the expected call, and the red mana really hurt him there.
And here we are, Steven and Paul are already partway into their first game here. Looks like Steven has deployed 4 lands, and Paul 2, so probably a Summer Bloom involved in that.
Probably a Summer Bloom. Or I see a Lightning Bolt and an Azusa. Could have been a Lightning Bolt and an Azusa.
That is indeed what it looks like it is. And Paul, playing his 3rd land now, has also cast his Serum Visions, shaped his hand a little bit. Looks like he has a handful of blue cards, including a Deceiver Exarch. Passes the turn back to Steven Speck without doing anything. Steven adds 3 mana to his mana pool and then plays a Boros Garrison.
And then uses the 3 mana to transmute.
Bounces his Teleri West and transmutes. He will find, of course, the Summoner's Pact.
Of course. All the crazy lines from this deck are starting to look familiar.
They are. It's a deck that's very, very good at doing the same thing every game.
Yeah. Sometimes it throws a Hive Mind in for flavor.
That's true, and of course the Hive Mind there goes great with all the packs it's playing, because Hive Mind puts a copy of that pact onto the stack for the opponent, who is much less likely to be able to pay the mana for it.
This has got to be a bad matchup for Steven Speck, though. I mean, not only does Paul have the combo potential, which, does he have it?
So I didn't see a red card in Paul's hand, but on Steven's end step, Cheon has played a Deceiver Exarch, tapping his last land. And now Paul untaps, and if he sees a twin, the game's over. He has a 4th land, but I don't see a twin.
Still the right line. But I mean, so Paul Cheon, not only he has this combo that can just win on turn 4, he also has Blood Moon.
Right.
Which is very close to 2R win the game against the Amulet Bloom deck.
Right, just shutting down all the action that those lands normally produce.
Also, all the colored mana. They have 1 forest.
For colored mana.
1 forest. You're down to like a bunch of red mana that can't cast a single spell in the deck. Sorry, the red mana can cast Simian Spirit Guide. Not really plan A, B, or C.
No, as I understand it,
Simian Spirit Guide.
The bounce lands still bounce when they come into play with a Blood Moon.
They do.
Available. That means that if he had cast Azusa and then bounces a forest after tapping it, he could produce 2 green to make a Primeval Tech.
Exciting.
Hard work.
That's exciting.
They're coming up like that.
I think they come into play tap, but don't bounce.
Oh, they
maybe?
don't bounce? Okay, then he can't do that even. But here we see Steven casting a Hive Mind, so that's got to be scary for Paul Cheon.
Paul's got a Cryptic Command in his hand. You have to counter this, right?
Well, he knows also that Steven has a pact in his hand.
That is true. Now, Paul can counter the half of the pact that's been added to the stack on his behalf.
Unfortunately,
so
then
pay for it.
Steven's Hive Mind puts another counter of the copy of the counter on the stack that can counter the counter.
All right, fine. So you just have to counter Hive Mind. You know there's a Summoner's Pact. What is he thinking about?
He may not know that Hive Mind interaction. It's a kind of a surprising one. So he is looking at his hand.
Oh, it's Remand that works well in those stacks, maybe.
Remand does the same thing, I think.
Yeah, you can run them out of mana, though.
He's just choosing which counter to use. He has cast it looks like a mana leak?
Remand.
A Remand.
Put it back in his hand.
So, turn back to Paul Cheon. Still no Splinter Twin, but Deceiver Exarch gets in for the 1 point of beatdown. Cheon searches up an island. Did he draw a Blood Moon this turn? Is that the card he saw?
Did he?
He might have. He did
red.
draw a Blood Moon. That's a Blood Moon. So Paul trying to think of some reason not to play Blood Moon here.
Hard to find a reason not to play it.
And he does
Kablam.
indeed cast the Blood Moon. Steven Speck looking at his hand.
It's like, that's bad.
Untaps. He's gonna try.
I mean, he's got 16 turns according to the Corn board state.
Right. So let's take a look at that list and see if we can find out that he's trying to find here. Seal of Primordium.
Yeah, in from the sideboard.
Yep.
You can still summon a Thragtusk if you brought those in. Vesuva and copy Paul's Island.
That's interesting.
Does Vesuva still triggers and copies, right?
Yeah.
So he can Vesuva to copy an island and then cast the Hive Mind.
So Paul now on Steven's end step is playing a Deceiver Exarch with 2 extra mana, but then untapping one of his own lands, play another Deceiver Exarch and increase that clock. He's now got 3 Exarchs and a 3-point beat down.
Yeah,
cracks
I see a
Steven
Splinter
down
Twin
to
in
12
his hand too, which can get a Lightning Bolt. So there's another 5 damage. There's like 2 turns left in this game.
Yep, and Steven just drawing more lands that don't produce anything but red mana.
Yeah, he's basically drawing for the 1 forest or one of the Vesuvas.
And I don't know if
Sorry, the 1 Vesuva.
the Seal of Primordium in his hand or not, but he would need that too.
Well, the Hive Minds. Vesuva into Hive Mind is good.
Right. Vesuva will still enter tapped though.
Oh, that's a good point.
So here comes Snapcaster Mage on end step from Cheon, getting a Lightning Bolt, knocking Steven to 9. It looks like Steven is running out of time rapidly
Oh
in this
yeah,
game.
he gets 1 more draw phase.
So now in for 5 with the Snapcaster and 3 Exarch. Steven down to 4. Steven draws, and it looks like another mountain.
Blood Moon, some good in this matchup.
And Steven casts...
Why couldn't you let me resolve my Hive Mind? Look at all these packs I had.
Steven does cast 2 spells there. He casts 2 pacts. But of course he can't pay for them. See Steven there having a laugh about how fruitless his deck was against
Blood Moon.
Yep.
Paul Cheon, ladies and gentlemen.
6-0. He needs 1 more win to guarantee a trip to day 2.
Right.
But
he's now looking for pro points though.
that's true.
We had the awesome storyline at Team GP where he needed to spike first place to get the 6 points to get to silver. But okay, now he's got his sights set a little higher, right? 20 pro points going into DC, but I mean with 4 days practice before DC, he did make day 2, but he got the minimum pro points. He wound up out of the top 100 and only got the minimum 3 points. But okay, that's 23. He's got an invite for the next Pro Tour already in his pocket.
Right.
It's guaranteed he gets 26. The magic number for Paul Cheon and for Paul Cheon fans out there is 35. 35 pro points will get him gold, will get him qualified for every Pro Tour through to the end of next season.
Right.
And so if you think about, he's guaranteed the minimum 3 at the next Pro Tour, he's kind of got this pseudo 26. Right. Now, where are the next 9 going to come from is the question. Where are the next 9 coming from?
And so far, he's looking pretty good to pick up a few here in Vancouver.
I mean, he's on track. There's a lot of work left to do. But yes, Grand Prix are a great place. If you're looking for 9 pro points, just, put up a couple Grand Prix finishes. He can't get 9 this weekend. I think first place of the GP is worth 8 if memory serves. But he can get a bunch. I mean, top 8 is worth 4, 2 or 3, even if he just finishes in the money. But you should start stripping those Grand Prix together. The other thing Paul needs is, I don't believe he has an invite to Pro Tour Origins yet. Magic Origins in the summer.
Okay.
So
he's looking for that. And we're going to jump over and give a look in here at Eric Severson, who is also playing Splinter Twin against Dan Lanthier, who is playing an interesting deck called Splinter Twin.
How does that work?
So it looks like the twins facing off against each other. Eric Severson has a Spellskite in play. They both have a lot of mana. Dan Lanthier has a Deceiver Exarch as he starts his turn. Eric Severson on 7 lands, Dan on 5. Dan gets in with his Deceiver Exarch, doesn't try to twin it up.
It seems like everybody went back to lots and lots of Snapcaster Mages this weekend. 7 between the two of them. The other one? All that many Snapcaster Mages at the Pro Tour.
Right.
They were still floating around, but I mean...
What do you think that means? What's the strategy there? Is that because those lightning bolts getting snapped back against all the little creature decks is useful?
Yeah, I think so. It lets you play a control game better. I mean, there were a lot of different versions of Splinter Twin at the Pro Tour, and it seems like the blue-white decks were the ones that advanced, right? Both in the top 8 were from the blue-red category.
Right.
The two-color twins.
And they maybe had one stomping ground that could be searched up so you could flash back an Ancient Grudge or something, right? So Eric fires off an Electrolyze on Dan's end step, then does very little on his own turn. Passes the turn back to Eric.
He's got a Spellskite, though.
He does have a Spellskite.
Effectively prevents Dan from comboing off. Dan has to deal with the Spellskite first.
And Dan currently looting with a Desolate Lighthouse, or Loot House as people call it. Discards a Tectonic Edge. And now he's attacking Eric with his Deceiver Exarch. Eric chooses to block. What do you think?
Well, that's the risk.
I think that seemed like what was going to happen too. Dan fires off a Lightning Bolt at Spellskite. So if it hadn't blocked, it could have survived. And that seems like a great deal for Dan.
Yes.
Being able to burn that bolt.
I mean, Eric's worried that the game could just last 10 turns, where if he starts taking Deceiver Exarch hits, suddenly those lightning bolts are being pointed at his face instead of at his Spellskite.
Yep. And so it also shows that he feels secure in his hand that he can avoid getting Deceiver Exarch. So here we see Eric firing off an Electrolyze.
Yeah,
and then
he keeps
a lightning
pointing
bolt.
these burn spells at Dan's face.
His plan is not to win with Twin here. It looks like he's just going for the face. Dan down to 8, Eric's still at 13. And Dan's going to have trouble matching that race when he's throwing a lightning bolt at his Spellskite. Also, Eric has another Spellskite, which he will now play.
Aha! Now blocking is even better.
That makes the block a little bit easier the prior turn. You can sort of see Eric's hand from here. We're also seeing a Remand and a Cryptic bounce around in there. As Dan loots on end step, he's got a number of cards in his hand. Looks like at least 4. He discards a land. And he's also, it looks like, sacrificing a Scalding Tarn and searching up a Steam Vent still on the end of Eric's turn. Dan now down on 4 life, so looks like the life totals might have just caught up with that lightning bolt.
Yeah.
Dan goes to his turn, plays Serum Visions. Looks like they both went on bottom. What do you think? You blocked this time?
I do.
He does. You see another lightning bolt. Dan has some nice looking lightning bolts over there.
Those are betas.
Eric just looking for a couple more points of damage, you know?
He's out though, isn't he? It's all, his hand's all blue. Maybe one of them was a Snapcaster.
His hand's all blue, but yeah, some of the creatures can act as aggressive cards too. But yeah, it looks like he just has Remands, Cryptics, and Island in his hand. And now Dan Lanthier's Desolate Lighthouse is really going to go to work.
I think it's Spell Snare, Remand, Cryptic, and an island.
It is. So Eric has
For Eric.
those 3 counters and an island. Dan getting in and taking Eric down to 12, so he's got a lot of time to draw those cards, especially with those lightning bolts getting used up already. Eric draws a land and plays it, passes back to Dan. Dan has a Pestermite.
I mean, that
And
now
step.
it's a 4-turn clock instead of a 12-turn clock.
Right, and Eric's got to be thinking about whether it's time to start using that
Do
cryptic
I
command.
care? It's only the Cryptic command that can get him out of this. And then he's got only a Remand for a potential Splinter Twin.
Right.
There's 8 mana on Dan's side. Is 4
Yeah.
of it red? 4 of it's red.
4 of it is red. So he's going to leave himself exposed to a possible Splinter Twin here, although Dan doesn't know that.
Right.
Of course.
It feels like it's a Desolate Lighthouse.
And so the
game.
Pestermite resolves, a Desolate
Yep.
Lighthouse draws him. Dan discards Keranos. That's a bad sign for Eric. That means he's got
Dan should be
action.
good. How long has he been on the Loot House?
Oh, yeah.
His hand should be
He's
great.
activated it 3 or 4 times. And here you see Dan attack, dropping Eric to 9, and then
Spell
play
Skite of his
a
own.
Spell Skite. That is a valid target for Spell Snare.
Yes.
Eric fires off without too much consideration.
I mean, not only does the Spell Skite bust up the combo, it also makes it a lot harder for Eric to just burn Dan down from 4.
Right, Eric's plan to win is to draw a couple of burn spells real fast here. You got a Serum Visions, so maybe that will help. Looks like he drew another blue card off of it,
blue
and he
card.
finds
A land and an Exarch, I think?
yeah, so definitely a Deceiver Exarch.
I think Dispel was the blue card Eric got with the first draw off the Serum Visions.
Yeah, it does look like a Dispel. So it looks like there's 2 blue cards under that scry, and Eric is mulling it over. He chooses to put
Top.
them both on top. He has a plan, Randy. Dan loots again, discards a Stomping Ground.
Yeah, he's content
Attacks
to
for
just
3.
loot his lands away and attack for 3.
And
That'll
defending
get
is
there.
whatever Eric's trying to do. So Eric now playing a main phase Jace, Architect of Thought. Well,
Wow.
that is an excellent defensive card. That was the other card we were seeing there
Yes.
on the scry. That's going to slow down that clock a lot if it resolves. He's tapped 4 to cast it. He still has 6 other lands, so he can cast both a Cryptic and a Remand here. As Dan starts digging through graveyards, see what could potentially be there. What do you think? Dan's thinking about, can I use my counters on this guy? Because there might be burn that I have to worry about.
I'm guessing from that die that it resolved, and now
does resolve.
up or down? Up.
So Jace resolves, goes up. That's going to reduce Dan's clock. But Dan still has the loot house, and he loots.
Exarch to the yard.
A Deceiver Exarch. I guess he's got all of those he can use. Wow, Jace looks really good here. Dan gets in for 1 with a Pestermite.
And went to Eric, right?
Drops Eric to 5. Yeah, and he's past the turn. And Eric just wondering where all those burn spells went. He's got so many, and he
Now it's time to head down.
is down with Jace. Reveals 2 lands and a Remand. Not much. Not what Eric's looking for. And now Dan's going to get to crack in for 3 and drop Eric to 2. That puts him in lightning bolt range. It looks like Eric, though, as a Deceiver Exarch, that's probably his plan.
Peak. What
Dan
you got?
has a peak. Eric considering whether to try
You
to
could
fight
dispel
the
it.
peak.
I don't think that makes sense.
Chooses not to. Eric reveals a hand of Dispel, Cryptic Command, Remand, Deceiver Exarch, and
Alt-Art Remand?
another Remand. Yep, it's like a foil Remand. So Dan is writing those down, and then he's going to resolve his peak, and I suspect he'll Desolate Lighthouse activate after that. He does.
Eric at 5, and Jace went down this turn.
Right, so
So
clearly
there's 3 power worth of attackers.
Eric's planning to use that Deceiver Exarch defensively here, I think, trying to tap the Pestermite and block the Deceiver Exarch. Dan knows this, so he's thinking, can I get another threat on the table? But Dan discards an island. Untaps. Dan's thinking about that combat phase. He does go to combat. When he does, Eric plays that Deceiver Exarch. I suspect if it resolves, he'll tap that Pestermite.
Seems like Dan should fight this.
Yeah, Dan certainly fighting it seems good, and he does cast a Remand on it. But it's not like those 2 cards are lethal unless Dan has a burn spell in his hand. This may be an indication that Dan has a finisher as well. After all that looting, I would be surprised if he didn't have something.
Sure. All right, Dan played the Remand straight to the graveyard, but it is in fact still on the stack.
Yes.
Targeting Deceiver Exarch.
Eric thinking about, well, if I get a Deceiver Exarch back, I can just cast it again. He does have 7 more mana.
Right.
But that also leaves him exposed because he can play less of his counters at that point. So he may just want to Dispel here.
Right. Yeah, Dispel. It also denies Dan the card draw from the Remand.
Right.
So 2 cheaper, and your opponent's down a card, but you're down the Dispel. Tricky. I think I would Dispel, I think.
I think I would Dispel too. Eric decides to let the Exarch come back.
And then he just replays
Dan
it.
draws, and he replays the Exarch.
Wow, this one resolves.
Pestermite does get tapped. It's like Dan just passed the turn. Well, that worked out well for Eric.
He doesn't really want to attack into the Exarch. I mean, obviously it'll just block, but Dan's at 4, don't forget.
Yeah, they're both quite low. Both of them have to be worried about the other person just drawing, Snapcaster Mage, hitting
Is
a
that
lightning
Keranos
bolt.
off the top for Eric?
It does look like you drew a Keranos, yeah. That is an incredibly dangerous card right now.
Hello.
It costs a lot of mana, too. This is interesting.
Better be good if I'm playing 5 mana for it in Modern.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost active for him, too. He's got a devotion of 5 here if it resolves.
I can't imagine it attacks all that much in this deck.
Oh, wow. So
It hasn't
Dan
even resolved yet.
with a Snapcaster. And is he going to go for Remand here?
Well, it hasn't resolved.
Snapcaster looks like has resolved.
Wow, really?
And
You
Remand
just
is
let the
gonna cast.
Snapcaster resolve? Okay, and then Remand's the
He
Remand.
remands the Remand, which is great because the Remand can't come back to hand. So he does.
It gets removed from the game by the flashback effect instead of winding up in Dan's hand.
Right, which is a nice
Remanding a
little play.
flashback spell is certainly nice value. I was thinking you could Cryptic Command the Snapcaster and then defend it with a Dispel, but I didn't realize, I forgot about the second Remand. This line makes a lot of sense too.
It does, and he's maybe a little less exposed on the following turn because the Cryptic Command Dispel would tap him out.
True. Well, Remand Dispel is going to almost tap him out. Well, it's not Remand Dispel. This is
A Deceiver Exarch from Dan, it looks like, in response to the Remand. So what is this going to do? Is he going to untap one of his own lands and fight with a Dispel?
Could also tap the Exarch.
Could tap the Exarch. Now, Jace hasn't been activated yet this turn, though, so...
True, good point. It's going to be hard to attack when Jace can go up.
Yep.
I guess if he taps the Exarch, his attack is for 2, which does get Eric the Lightning Bolt range. So attacking is potentially relevant. I mean, Snapcaster's in play.
Yeah, that's true.
right.
Eric thinking about that Exarch.
Yeah, we don't know what Dan's plans for the Exarch are because it hasn't resolved yet. Eric has to decide, and it's hard to fight it, right?
He has a Remand.
He has yet another Remand?
Yeah. And he has Remand on the stack too, so he's going to draw a card here. But if he Remands, he's sitting on just Dispel. Dispel, of course, can counter a Lightning Bolt, but Dan's got a lot of mana and a lot of cards.
So, yeah, that Remand, we're pretty sure is on the stack, targeting the Remand that's floating near Dan's graveyard.
And then the Deceiver Exarch across from it is also on the stack on top of the Remand. So we're waiting to see what happens with this Exarch.
Yeah, it's on Eric. Do you Remand this Exarch?
I think you might have to.
No,
he lets it resolve.
Exarch tap the land.
And it taps the land, which
The
is a
Remand
dead
resolves.
giveaway that Dan does not have a Lightning Bolt in his hand.
Jace has to go up here.
Eric drew exactly what he wanted there.
A land?
He drew a land so he can still play 2 spells, 2 counters on Dan's turn. He does up Jace. Now we're back to Dan's turn.
Dan did a great job of picking a fight to try to... Yeah, he did a great job of picking a fight to try to get Eric tapped out.
Yep.
Eric top-decked land off the Remand, crucially, so that he has a Dispel available. So here's Negate, here's Dispel. Can Dan stop the Dispel?
So the Remand, so now...
Whoa, he can!
And that's it. Splinter Twin resolved. So Dan played Splinter Twin with Eric on low mana, knowing he had 2 counters. There was nothing to be done there.
On to game 3.
Yeah, that was a really, really interesting Dan.
It was.
Looked like he might be in trouble there when Eric was firing off all that direct damage. But then Eric couldn't fight anymore, and Dan started beating down his creatures. Putting Eric in a position where he had to play spells on his own turn.
Right, Dan was just sitting on that lighthouse for so long that he was able to sculpt this perfect hand. Eric is just kind of drawing off the top, and one of the things when the card he drew off the top was Keranos.
Yeah.
He was just like, well, I'm not going to do nothing with a effectively blank card in my hand versus your lighthouse. I better go for this Keranos. He actually did have enough mana to play out all the counters from his hand. Oh, I guess he still had the 1 Cryptic command left. Yeah. Right, because he committed to Keranos, he was down 1 counter when the fight happened over the Splinter Twin.
You have to think if maybe he draws the Keranos a few turns sooner, then
for sure.
Dan can't abuse him quite as much, and then he gets to take advantage of that and probably win the game off of it. But you'll note that Dan actually discarded a Keranos when he was looting.
True.
So the big disadvantage there, right? Tapping all that mana to play Keranos leaves you really exposed.
Yeah, no, and if you're trying to get through a Splinter Twin in one of those matchups where everybody's got the grip full of counters, your goal is to somehow pick a fight on the other guy's turn.
Right.
If you can pick a fight on the other guy's turn, you fight that fight, then you get to untap, they don't. Now go for your hammer.
Absolutely.
It was just a textbook example from Dan Lanthier.
So this is interesting. We just saw Eric go to his sideboard, and it looked like he had sided out a couple of lightning bolts. And you saw him grab it and put it back in, saying, you know what, I think this is maybe a really good way to win these games. He took a Spell Scud out, put a lightning bolt back in. And if neither player can tap enough mana on their own turn because they're afraid of counters, or I counter this and then on my turn I kill you.
Sure.
Let's play the burn game. Let me just see if I can kill you with instants.
You see King of the Hill, Alexander Hayne in the background. Grand Prix Vancouver, defending Grand Prix Vancouver champion.
Yep.
Would love to run it back, I'm sure. And he hasn't lost yet. He's 5-0 and playing under the Turbo Match camera. So if we have time, we will certainly watch him play out that match as well.
He's playing the
Amulet.
Somewhat messy deck, I guess. Amulet. You get these messy boards, all these lands, and all of them can do so much. Kind of fun to watch. Try to decipher what's happening.
I'm going to try not to lip read up there. I don't want spoilers for my Turbo Match. Can't quite see who won. Don't want to know.
See Eric and Dan shuffle up for game 3.
Hayden's stoic enough that he could either have won or lost with that countenance, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I like that Dan and Eric are basically playing the same deck and they have the same sleeves. It can get very confusing if they lose track of.
Funny.
It's like.
They don't have a lot of time left, by the way. Time's just been called on the round. Now, often the feature match players have some extra minutes because it takes a little longer by the time they get announced for them to get over to the feature match area.
Right.
So we'll try to listen to hear if time's been called for them yet.
Dan on the mulligan, maybe this is the reason.
Sounds like they have 5 minutes. Okay, if they have 5 minutes, then they should have enough time to. I mean, if somebody's going to get a combo kill, they'll have time.
Certainly. But maybe that changes the likelihood of the burn strategy being relevant in this.
Yeah, they're not going to have time to play out another game like game 2.
Certainly not. Which is too bad because it was an interesting game.
It was.
So you can see them start to play really fast.
Yeah.
Eric Severson spilling his Scalding Tarn and his Serum Visions on the table and grabbing an island quite quickly. And Dan's going to shuffle his deck there.
It's like one hand over hand shuffle. Is that good enough? Dan's going to make sure it got shuffled.
Eric draws, scries 2, sees a Cryptic and a Remand. It looks like they are going to go on top, maybe? Yeah.
What's it going to be?
Eric's hand looks pretty balanced, but he doesn't seem to have the combo there.
I think that was top.
Yeah, it was top. Dan plays a Misty and passed. Eric should be able to play this turn quickly. Yep, and he does. Dan with the end step Misty Rainforest activate. Searches up a tap Steam Vents. Are you surprised? Shocked? End step Sackline.
Never seen that play before.
Of course, that's to maintain flexibility as long as possible and then get the land and avoid the shock effect. And tapping right away.
You
up for blood, he says, on your end step, I will lightning bolt you. See if we can't finish this off. He's got a Snapcaster in his hand, I think, so he's probably doing that just so he can get this started right now. Eric sacks a land, or Dan sacks a land. In response, Eric could Snapcaster now.
So before he has the 2-mana up to defend it with?
Right.
It's not crazy.
Like Eric's going to be patient.
I don't think you want to tap out on your own end step, though. I mean, it's not like Dan can do a combo kill from.
Right, I think this early you might be able to do it because what's the threat from Dan? He's going to resolve something, that's scary. So will we see this play from Eric? I think we will.
You might just be right there. I mean, effectively main phase Snapcaster bolt you, but it gets to resolve.
Right, because here in a situation where Dan's going to have the Remand, possibly.
Right. Yeah, well, you're not that worried about Remand if you're Eric. You might even be happy to slog through one.
That's true. Mana leak, though.
Right, those are the annoying counters.
So,
or even the Dispel on the Lightning Bolt, right?
Dan's end step, and Eric is playing his Snapcaster Mage, and it resolves, and he sticks a Lightning Bolt.
Say, wait a minute, while you're tapped out.
And there is Electrolyze. Well, that would be a...
Yeah, this would have worked out the same, whichever way Eric played it.
Dan electrolyzes, kills the Snapcaster, does one to Eric, draws a card, pretty good deal for him. It's not a bad way to fight a Snapcaster. Eric has a 4th land and a Spellskite, passes back to Dan. And they both have the Lighthouse. This could have been a really interesting long game if they had time.
If there was time.
Eric plays a 5th land, passes to Dan, who activates the Lighthouse. You caught a glimpse of a Lightning Bolt in Dan's hand as he discards a land. He plays a 5th. Now it's Eric's turn to loot.
Found a Lightning Bolt. Has all spells, though.
Yeah, he's going to discard a spell here, and it looks like a Remand is going to hit the graveyard.
Oh, he's got a Lightning Bolt and another Snapcaster.
Sure does, and he fires off the Lightning Bolt.
Sure.
I want to get you in a position where when we get to 5 extra turns, I can pressure your life total enough to actually win in that time. Dan is down to 9 already.
Right.
Eric draws, plays Serum Visions, and he has spotted a Splinter Twin.
He has.
The question is, does he want to have that option? Looks like Dan is probably in defensive mode. What's that other card? Another Snapcaster Mage, it looks like.
He's running out of Lightning Bolts, though. He went top again.
So Dan plays an end step Pestermite into Eric's 4 land.
Interesting.
Eric can make the target the Spellskite if he wants to maintain his mana.
Which with a Cryptic Command he might.
Yeah.
I don't think he cares all that much about the Pestermite.
Right. Dan would have to work around the Spellskite as well.
Precisely.
In order to resolve a Splinter Twin.
Although, I mean, the
it looks
Pestermite
like
does attack for 2.
Dan does have
not
a
nothing.
Dismember in his hand.
Okay.
And indeed, Eric pays 2 life, makes the Pestermite target the Spellskite so he can have all 4 of his mana available. So Eric drops to 13 and now 11. Dan just plays a land, passes the turn after attacking the Pestermite. Eric plays the Snapcaster, casts the Lightning Bolt, and Dan takes the opportunity to resolve a Deceiver Exarch.
I believe Eric has 1 more mana tapped for the Lightning Bolt. I don't think he tapped his red mana yet.
Right.
Yeah, there you go.
So there it is.
Right, so this Exarch seems extremely likely to resolve.
Exarch resolves on tapping a land, and the Lightning Bolt gets hit by a remand. And since it's being flashed back, that is a draw a card, counter a
That
spell.
is dismiss. And now time's been called? All right, time's been called on Dan's turn.
Eric's
so this is
turn
now turn 1.
And he has just drawn a Splinter Twin.
Well, he put it on top with the Serum Visions.
Did, but he does not have.
I know. I was a little bit surprised by that. I mean, he can twin up the Snapcaster, which is always fun.
Fun, but not the way to win in extra turns.
And all those Lightning Bolts have been exiled, so
Yep.
I'm not sure what his plan was with top.
Well, perhaps he was planning to activate his Lighthouse and just discard it.
Why wouldn't you put it on the bottom and get the information sooner?
Well, he kept the next card as well. So he would have been in a situation where if he activates Lighthouse, he draws a card that he wants to keep. That seems strange to me, but perhaps that was his thinking. Or maybe he wants the opportunity to, I mean, he has to, this is turn 1 of extra turns. He doesn't have a lot of time to find a creature. So Eric indeed does nothing, plays no land, passes the turn to Dan. Now it looks like Dan might have the opportunity.
Well, you said he's got a Dismember,
He has a Dismember,
so he can potentially kill Spellskite and combo off.
right? But he has to also consider, does he want to go down to now 4 life? He just sacked a land, taking himself to 8
Fine point.
against Eric's aggressive Lightning Bolt plays, sort of indicating that Eric has maybe more of that effect.
Well, he didn't have more last time.
That's true.
Burned him down to 4. They played 5 more turns. And
Yeah, maybe
Dan
Dan's
won
gonna
the
think
game in
4 is a
4.
great life total. I'd like to go back there. So Dan gets in with the Pestermite, drops Eric now to 9. And we may just get a result
Chips it
here.
back, turn 3.
Eric draws a blue card. This is the other card he scryed to the top.
Is it an Exarch? That would give him the potential twin combo on the last turn of extra turns.
It would. He is past the turn, so it might be. And Dan now going for the face with the Lightning Bolt.
Well, you can redirect to Spellskite.
He can. It'll prevent 1 of the damage.
Well, you can pay blue. You don't have to pay 2 life for Spellskite. You do have the alternate cost of actually paying blue mana for your Phyrexian mana.
This is true. That would be
But tapping a land is not free.
right.
in
Eric
this
stuck at
matchup.
5 lands here, so
I mean, it feels like Dan's trying to start a fight, doesn't it?
it does. I
I mean,
think
Dan's the one with Pestermite Deceiver Exarch. If he can start a fight, get Eric to tap some mana, untap Windmill Slam Splinter Twin on the last possible turn.
but I'm not sure. And this is going to be actually Dan's last possible turn. So this is Dan going for the kill here.
I mean, he's doing what he can. He may not even have it, but I have no choice but to go for it. So
Eric will pay
has,
2 life, so he goes to 7.
He
redirects
effectively
Lightning
took 1 from that Lightning Bolt. Or took 2. He saved 1.
Prevented
Saved
1.
one.
And here we see what I think is another Lightning Bolt.
Finish off the Spellskite. No Dismember needed.
Wow. So he's gonna, maybe what I saw was a Lightning Bolt, because no, there's a Dismember in there. So here it is, Lightning Bolt targeting Spellskite. He doesn't want to pay the 4 life for the Dismember and put himself at risk.
Sure.
Especially after Eric scryed 2 cards to the top.
Sure. But he does want Spellskite down. Now, we don't know if Dan has a Splinter Twin, but if he does, he's done a pretty nice job of getting through the Spellskite. Although then again, I mean, Eric's got a bunch of counters too. Eric's on Cryptic Command, Dispel. Eric could choose to fight over this Lightning Bolt rather than wait to fight over a Splinter Twin.
Right, but with his life being really low, the Spellskite starts to lose its utility.
Also, fighting on his own turn when Dan then gets to untap, as we keep talking about, is just scary.
Yeah.
I'd almost rather fight after Dan commits 4 mana to a twin.
All right, and he lets the Spellskite die. So now Dan has yet another effect on end step, and he's going to activate his Desolate Lighthouse.
Yeah. He's doing his best. Was that a twin?
I think it was a land.
That's not as much fun.
So here we go, Dan. Can you get him on your last turn? Looks like he does have a Keranos in hand, which is not going to help.
No. Eric's on 7, which is effectively 5.
And
well,
here
no
comes
Splinter
the
Twin
Pestermite.
combo.
So that puts him on 5. So, yep, Dan does not have a lethal effect. Now Eric gets to see if he can puzzle out.
Is this end step? No, 4 mana. Loot.
He loots.
Wow, he's got the twin, he's got the Exarch.
Yeah, he discards the twin because he knows he doesn't have time.
He doesn't have time. He just drew the Exarch though.
Yep.
It's too bad.
There's one away.
Sure looks like a draw.
This is turn 5. Eric passes the turn and Dan loots.
Bolt, bolt.
Can he draw 2 lightning bolts off here? I don't think he can. There's that dismember going to the graveyard. And it looks like, is the turn count wrong?
Do they have an extension? They could have an extension.
Well, we've got the timer going there, so it looks like maybe this is turn 5. Turn 6.
No, well, sometimes when there's a slow play warning, they get 7 extra turns.
And that's true. And Dan.
And that extra turn, turn 6 of extra turns. They had a 2-turn.
They have what?
They got one extra turn due to a previous slow play scenario, and Dan uses that extra turn to go for the win.
And yet, Eric does have effects now. Eric has, for example, he could play his own Deceiver Exarch and tap the Exarch first.
Oh, funny.
And that would be enough.
If it resolves. He's got Cryptic.
He's got a Cryptic.
It seems like he can counter twice. I don't see... If he gets... Oh, Exarch, does he have a Remand? Can he Exarch Remand Dispel for effectively 3 counters?
I think he can, and that also gets around the possibility that Dan has 2 Dispels, which cannot target a... But instead, he's going to play Cryptic Command.
Yeah, all right. He goes for the Cryptic. Dan has Remand.
Okay, Dan
has
Remand.
That's not going to be enough. But we believe Eric has a Dispel to win this fight.
He might have a Remand as well, which would be good enough. This is a situation where certainly an Exarch would have beat the Remand because he could just play it again.
Yeah. Looks like a draw.
Well, Eric has to show him one more spell for it to be a draw.
Yes. What is Eric? I don't know what Eric's thinking about.
He does.
There we go.
They were perhaps discussing. Oh, and there's one more turn after this.
Yeah, Eric gets his turn.
Eric,
when they add extra turns,
I think Eric
it goes from 5 to 7.
Just missed a big opportunity because if he makes the play of oh no, he discarded his own Splinter Twin.
Eric's got his head in his hands briefly there. Yeah. If he hadn't discarded Splinter Twin, he could have Exarched to break up the combo, untapped, and won the game.
His own Exarch, yep. And it would have worked out. He would have been very clear because the Remand would have put it back in his hand.
Yeah, so it is. They have let one go though.
He had a chance.
Well, I think we're going to get our King of the Hill match on Turbo.
All right.
We may go back to the Pro Tour and watch me talk with Rich Hagon about the top 15 cards in Modern, but not when we have Magic we can show.
Okay, King of the Hill.
More Magic.
There's Hane.
He's the king.
And it looks like...
It's 5-0. Now,
Merfolk.
this is a Merfolk deck.
Yes.
We had a bait and switch from Bloom naming Merfolk in a turn 1 Cavern just to confuse everybody. This is honest to goodness Merfolk.
But Hane has the start.
He does. Turn 1 Amulet.
Ooh,
Azusa.
Rain Fountain. Gems. Okay, so, but he not quite as explosive as it could be. And that looks like a Lord of Atlantis and a Curse Catcher. Curse Catcher is helpful, not...
It doesn't do anything about Primeval Titan, but
yeah,
muck up a Pact or
Summer Bloom early, but looks like a little too late to do that. Looks like Hayne might be a little short on the.
He's got lots of
two-mana
land.
lands.
He needs threats.
Yep.
I mean, he's got enough mana in play to play all the spells in his deck, even through a Curse Catcher.
Andrew lean over and look for islands. Doesn't find any. Yeah, Haynes running out of time real fast here. Although he has played Radiant Fountain twice and is now playing again. So
yeah, he needs to draw some gas.
there it is.
Oh, there's Summoner's Pact. Okay, that counts.
So now
Gets a
he is playing against blue.
right.
Here we go. Here is Perennial Titan. And it gets remanded.
Maybe next turn.
Or maybe this turn. As Hayne has enough mana to go ahead and just replay it.
Pretty crazy.
And now Hayne is going off, I think.
The permission suite in this Merfolk deck is 3 remands, plus
3 remands.
plus the 4 Curse Catchers.
And what about the sideboard?
You can sideboard in a couple negates, but that's it. He's got a fair amount of bounce though. Like he can Vapor Snag, he can Echoing Truth after boarding. He can Tidebinder Mage.
Yeah, Tidebinder is pretty good. Oh, wow.
Yeah, Phantasmal Image.
So Hayne does get
Nice.
a lot of lands into play.
And a
but
couple of
isn't quite
Mutavaults. Those are not irrelevant lands.
Wow.
Those
That's
are
another
4/4
Phantasmal Image?
Mutavaults.
2 Phantasmal Image.
Well, they're great in the Merfolk deck because you normally copy Lords. But you know what? Sometimes you copy Primeval Titan.
If you're
That's
about to get something
awesome.
huge out, that is awesome. Now, the question is, those Phantasmal Images, if you target them, they
What is
die right
Hayne going
away.
to target them with?
Well, he has a bunch of lands that target, that have activated abilities.
Oh, the Slayer Stronghold and the
Sunhome Fortress.
those are target. Wow.
So here comes Vesuva. Hayne copying some kind of come to play tap land or.
And he sees it. Yep.
Yeah, Hayne wasn't going to miss that one.
And there's a Vesuva
Yep, Vesuva.
as a bounce land, I think. Oh, to untap the targetable land.
You have to reuse targetable land. So now he goes and finds a Slaughter Pact.
Wow.
Slaughter
Down go
Pact is
both
counter
Primeval Titans.
when it.
Oh, nice. So he doesn't even have to pay for
Doesn't have
it?
to pay for it next turn. Or no.
Oh, no, he...
He has a Slaughter Pact in his hand, so
Yes.
he's probably saving that for a Lord. He's used his targeting effects to kill the Phantasmal Images.
And now Primeval Titan attacks.
Does
What a
he have
crazy game.
enough? It looks like he also went and got Colony Garden, so he has a blocker.
And I think that's Sunhome.
And
So,
the Primeval Titan
crunch.
forces the block. So Andrew's
How about
got
those
to be really
Mutavaults,
low.
though? 3 Lords. They're 5/5 Mutavaults.
Wow,
Slaughter
everyone's...
Pact can hit one of the Lords.
And it looks like Hayne had a block, and
Wow.
Andrew conceded. Is that...
4
saw?
5/5 Mutavaults got there for Andrew Lessiak.
Did they?
I'm pretty sure that's what that was. We didn't go to Alex's turn.
That's true.
I mean, they could have just agreed that Alex won on the next turn, I guess.
Right.
Is the problem with Turbo Magic? Well, we'll see who plays first.
Let's see who plays first.
I was a lot of Mutavaults.
It was a lot of
though.
Mutavaults. It seems like Andrew, that must have been lethal.
Yeah, and wait, Alex playing for? No.
Alex
The
didn't
Mutavaults
win
did
one.
not get there.
Right,
So,
so
it's the crackback with Primeval Titan.
And
Okay, that was Andrew just saying, well, I got to attack with everything and hope
Yeah.
it's good enough. You do the math. And Alex is like, I can do the math. I can block enough.
Yeah. Well, the Lords don't grow themselves, so he let the Lords through and blocked the Mutavaults. I think that made the life.
Well, I mean, the Lords grow the people other than themselves. The Lords were 4/4s.
Right. So the
The
Mutavaults,
Mutavaults were
ones that blocked all
5/5s.
the Mutavaults.
But Alex had a Slaughter Pact, so I'm sure that
Right.
Slaughter Pact takes out a Lord and shrinks all the Mutavaults.
Yep. So here we go into the next game, and already a Primeval Titan hitting the battlefield on Hayne's
Jeez.
third turn. Andrew got to 5-0 with this Merfolk deck, but and he will copy. Looks like. What has he copied there? Is that Curse Catcher?
I'm not
can't
sure.
tell what the foil
I'm
is.
not sure. Is it a Rejury?
Oh, it might be a Rejury. Oh, yes, because he was untapping things. So it's a Rejury.
Yeah, it's a
And then
Rejury.
he's Vapor Snagged the Primeval Titan. It's interesting interesting. It's hard to tell if the Merfolk deck really has a shot here at all, because it seems like he can't really stop the Primeval Titan.
It's hard to do much better than what he did last game, right?
Yeah.
Copy your Primeval Titan, copy your Primeval Titan again, get 4 Mutavaults, 3 Lords. That wasn't good enough.
And there you go. Again, the Phantasmal Image just dying to the lands that
Yeah.
Alexander gets for free.
That's the real problem here, is the Phantasmal Image just seems super fragile.
Yeah. So, another Vapor Snag, but I don't know if that's enough. Although he's doing a lot of damage.
Yeah?
There is a Radiant Fountain on Haynes' side of the table. So he may have played that a couple times by now. There's the Primeval Titan again.
Certainly getting to put lots of land into play.
You can bet that Radiant Fountain's coming back to his hand.
Oh yeah. And getting replayed. Oh, Thrag Tusk for even more life.
That's a big one.
You know what Andrew hasn't drawn that would have been quite good for him? Spreading Seas. Turning on all the Island Walk.
That's true.
He runs it.
Yeah.
Just hasn't drawn it.
Hasn't seen the card.
Although
he doesn't search his library.
I guess
for
the
every card
bounce
in his deck.
lands, right? The bounce lands can potentially pick up the land, but as a one-shot falter, it's quite good.
Yeah. Well, it looks like Hayne now has Amulet of Vigor to go along with the Thrag Tusk and a Primeval Titan.
Amulet got to untap with non-summoning sick Primeval Titan and play an Amulet. This cannot be good for Andrew Lesia.
Seems like only a matter of time until Andrew has to pick up those cards. Maybe he has a Cryptic Command and he's planning on bouncing after the activations here?
Is that the plan?
I don't see how that's a winning plan, but it may be the reason he hasn't conceded.
It's a not losing plan, I guess?
I think what I would have done in that case was probably just tap the creatures, so that's maybe not quite accurate. Does he have Cryptic Commands in his deck? I don't think he
Oh,
does,
no.
actually.
No, he doesn't.
Well, that's not what he's planning.
He's counting. Another Vapor Snag. He has another Vapor Snag.
Okay, so
and Alex is like, all right, I'll keep replaying.
And here comes the Summer.
Oh, I only have 5 mana? Fine, it'll be a Thrag Tusk. Oh, he had enough mana. He could have replayed Primeval Titan. Rather have a Thrag Tusk.
Yep, might as well get that life total out of reach. Can't imagine Andrew is very optimistic about this game. Looks like that number 1 over there is another Colony Garden token.
Silvergill Adept. Full price.
Silvergill Adept.
It's the alternate casting cost of the actual casting cost.
Yeah. It was discounted by 1 with the Reedry.
Sure.
But this is not.
Yeah, that's more than enough. We saw the handshake, now the post-game decompression.